recording. And then you can use the question panel to ask questions. Because everybody's on mute, you can't just ask away. You've got to actually ask the question in the question and answer panel. You should find that on the bottom of your screen, on the top, wherever it is on your particular machine. But just go ahead and ask questions, and I will be standing on standby while Todd is talking and being able to answer questions as we go. And then there is a quiz. And remember, to be able to get credits, you have to complete the quiz. That quiz will be sent out. Well, it'll be on a QR code on the last slide, but we'll also send that out on an email. So you can always go through the email when I send it out, click on the link, and be able to complete the quiz that way. For future webinars and to watch past webinars, you can always go to our website at blatchfordus.com/webinars. We'll have all of our past webinars. We'll also have our webinars with that are upcoming. You can sign up for them there. It's also on our YouTube channel at Blatchford Institute on YouTube. They have all of our past webinars in different languages, and then also any webinars that we've done, plus some additional videos. You can always ask me any kind of questions after the webinar. I know sometimes it's hard to think of a question or not be able to type it up in time. So you can ask the question on via email at mike.mcgee@blatchfordus.com. So you can go on to the next slide, Todd. I think he's having trouble getting off mute. Todd, are you there? This was all working perfectly just a few minutes
ago. It was working perfectly earlier.
There you go. Now it's right next to the microphone button, Todd, you should see your video camera.
There we go. There we go. Now it's letting me do the slides.
All right. You should be able to turn on your video as well. Again, my name is Mike McGee. I'm a certified prosthetist. I've been with Blatchford for almost 13 years now. It seems crazy that it's been that long. But I was a regional clinical specialist for Blatchford for about 8 of those years. And then a few years back, I got into this role of being a global education manager and senior prosthetist. So what that means is I run education for Blatchford as a whole and help develop content to make sure that all the languages and everybody's doing the same type of educational content. As I said, we've got Todd O'Hare here. Todd is a regional clinical specialist. And Todd, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Mike. I'm still working on trying to get me on video, and it's I'm working on it. We'll get there. So again, this is working perfectly earlier. But Mike, as Mike said, I've been with Blatchford for a little over a year and a half. Prior to that, I started my career as a physical therapist and then transitioned to the O&P profession in late 2000s and have been doing it for the last 17 years and have truly enjoyed the last year and a half with Blatchford.
And that QR code there, that is, while he's trying to get his camera, that is our contact information. So you can scan either one of those with your camera, and it'll ask you to fill out some information. You can get our contact information from that. And then once you've downloaded our contact information, it'll offer the opportunity for you to share your contact back with us. If you'd like to do that, we would love to have it. That way we can be able to interact with you. So feel free to do that. You can always ask us questions. That will include our phone number, so you can text us at any time. See, there you go. I stalled just long enough.
You stalled long enough for me, Mike. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Todd. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get rolling. Todd, I'll let you go ahead and take over for the next little bit, and I'll come on towards the end.
Sounds good. So what are we going to be talking about? We're talking about the Linx today. It's our microprocessor controlled ankle and microprocessor controlled knee system. It's a coordinated bi-directional communication between the knee and the ankle. So some of the key benefits that we're going to talk about today is going to be standing support, ramp assist, brake effect, stumble recovery, supported sitting, and adaptive speed control. But I can say those words and it sounds great, but I believe it's more important when you can actually see it. So let's watch this video. Well, there we go. Let's talk about the links and some of the benefits, some of the overall aspects of it. First and foremost, it is a coordinated system, a microprocessor ankle with a microprocessor knee. And so the links is truly going to adapt to the patient, to the amputee, to the wearer's needs in real time. There are multiple sensors, including IMUs, tilt sensors, range of motion sensors, accelerometers that are going to adapt what's going on specifically with knee flexion resistance during stance, knee hydraulic resistance during swing, pneumatic extension assist during swing, combined with individual plantar flexion and dorsiflexion resistance to adapt to the surface for the patient in what they need at that time. It is won multiple awards. One of the biggest awards it's won was back in 2016. It won the Mac Robert award in the UK by the Royal Engineering Academy, or the Academy, I'm sorry, the Academy of Royal Engineering. And it beat out Jaguar and Siemens and said this is the most significant technological improvement in that country at that point in time. So let's talk about what we already know. What do we know when we talk about the challenges for amputees? Well, we know that there's going to be an increased risk for osteoarthritis on their sound limb, increased risk for osteopenia on their prosthetic side. They expend more energy in walking. They expend more energy, based on the level of their amputation. They have a higher risk of low back pain, a higher risk of residual limb issues. They also have a higher risk, especially in your dysvascular and your neuropathic presentations. They have a higher risk of a contralateral limb having an amputation. So these are the challenges that they're facing every day. And so when we look at what we're doing in our prosthetic design, when we choose our socket, when we choose a liner or a skin fit, and when we choose our suspension system, along with when we choose our knee and our foot, what we're trying to do is mitigate these challenges for our patients, because these challenges lead to increased cognitive demand, increased concern about their everyday steps, increased concern about are they going to have the stability, the balance that they need on a daily basis to walk out their door, to walk up grass, to walk on a slope. And so in general, when you look at typical amputee gait, they have at least one gait deviation. We do our best as prosthetists to eliminate the gait deviations, right? We can easily eliminate a medial whip or a lateral whip, but some of those gait deviations comes from the inherent design of our prosthesis, right? So let's think about a transtibial prosthesis. We set it up typically between 5 to 7 degrees of socket flexion, 5 to 7 degrees of knee flexion. Yet, when we walk at initial contact loading response, we may need up to 10 to 12 degrees of knee flexion for shock absorption. Yet, in our inherent design of our prosthesis, we create some asymmetries because we're not able to truly mimic every part of normal human locomotion. So we're doing our best with our prosthetic design. We're doing our best with the choice of foot, the choice of knee. But let's look at it. When we have an energy storing and releasing foot, we are simulating plantar flexion and dorsiflexion. We are not actually capturing true plantar flexion, dorsiflexion of the anatomical foot. So as a result of typical amputee gait deviations, there's an increased demand on the patient. That could be an increased cognitive demand. There's increased risk, like I said earlier, of osteoarthritis on their sound limb, osteopenia on their prosthetic side. And so what we're trying to do with our design is decrease as many of those secondary musculoskeletal complications that may arise. Many of them arise. Why? Because of unequal limb loading. When you look at our amputees, when they are standing still or when they're walking, when they're standing on a slope, how equal is their limb loading in single limb stance on their prosthetic side compared to their sound side? Typically, they're spending more time on their sound limb and less time on their prosthetic side. With the Linx is an option to help decrease that unequal limb loading. And that starts at the ankle. So in an energy storing and releasing foot in the top of this picture versus a self-aligning hydraulic ankle that has 6 degrees of plantar flexion and 3 degrees of dorsiflexion, such that the Linx has, what happens? We are able to better align our foot to the surface as opposed to having to fight an unwanted knee flexion moment or an unwanted hip flexion moment because we've got to accommodate for that lack of true plantar flexion, that lack of true dorsiflexion. So it starts from the foot up with the Linx. It starts at the ankle, the ability for the Linx ankle to have 6 degrees of plantar flexion and 3 degrees of dorsiflexion available to it. This technology starts with our echelon. Our echelon was the beginning for the Elan, which is then the advancement to the Linx system. So let's go through some of the benefits of the Linx, and we're first going to talk about the ankle itself. So, like I had mentioned just a few seconds ago, the echelon is really the mother of our hydraulic series. So you have the echelon starting in that kind of third from the left. You have the echelon, then you move to the echelon vac. Then you move to the echelon VT, which is going to provide shock absorption and rotation. And then on that far right in the top, you have the echelon ER, which is going to provide 19 degrees of plantar flexion and 6 degrees of dorsiflexion, additional range of motion beyond the original echelon, which is 6 degrees of plantar and 3 degrees of dorsiflexion. And then when you move to the left, that is when we combine the microprocessor technology to the echelon and we created the Elan and the Elan IC. When we look at the echelon, which is the beginning, and then it translates over to the Elan, the difference being with the Elan, you have a microprocessor system that is sensing three primary sensors that's providing the foot with information to be able to adapt to the surface and to the needs of the patient to provide what they need at that point in time. Those three sensors are an accelerometer, a tilt sensor, and a range of motion sensor. That is intact with the microprocessor ankle technology in the Linx. But let's look at what is actually going on with the foot itself with the hydraulics. We are mimicking those four sagittal plane rockers of a heel rocker, ankle rocker, forefoot rocker, and toe rocker. In addition, with those toe springs and with the compliance of the foot itself, it is also incorporating a fifth rocker, the ML rocker. So when we look at initial contact loading response, that's when we're incorporating that heel rocker, when that foot gets flat to the ground by going into plantar flexion. And then our ankle rocker goes into effect because we're getting that controlled tibial advancement going from a position of plantar flexion towards neutral, towards dorsiflexion. As we progress that tibia over that forefoot, we incorporate that forefoot rocker. At the end of mid stance, as we progress to terminal stance, that is when that toe rocker comes into effect. In normal human locomotion and in an intact foot, that is when that forefoot is going into greater extension, but that hind foot and midfoot are going into a position of plantar flexion to create that windlass effect that gives us a stable forefoot, a stable ankle complex to propel us forward. So that is how the echelon was developed, and the Elan is the microprocessor component to it that was added to the Linx, but it is based on this biomimicry, based on trying to do our best to mimic normal human locomotion and mimic true ankle function. And that is where the Linx starts from the foot up, it starts from that technology. The other piece that's important to understand is what is the interaction between hydraulics and carbon heel and toe springs. So if you have increased hydraulic resistance, as you can see in that picture on the left, what ends up happening is that at initial contact loading response, or when there is weight going through that foot, when you have higher hydraulic resistance, then that force, that body weight, and that ground reaction force is going to cause an increased transfer of force into the spring. And when you transfer greater force into the spring, you're going to get greater deflection of that spring. And in return, you're going to get greater propulsion or energy return of that heel or toe spring. As opposed to when you have lower hydraulic resistance, when maybe 3 or 4 ports are open in that hydraulic system, and you're getting a more smooth laminar flow, then that fluid is going to allow that force to move through the fluid and then eventually transmit force to the spring. So you're not going to get the same energy return. You're going to get more of a dampening. What's really truly unique about the Lynx foot is that it has the ability to independently adjust plantar flexion and dorsiflexion resistance according to the needs of the patient at that time. So what does that look like? Well, yes, this is a picture of an Elan, but understand I wanted to isolate what is happening at the ankle in the Lynx system, specifically when you're walking down a hill, when you're walking up a hill, when you're walking fast, and when you're stopped. So as you're walking down a hill, think of heel as plantar resistance and toe as dorsal resistance. So when you're walking down a hill, you want to get foot flat sooner. You want to get that 6 degrees of plantar flexion to accommodate to the surface quicker. How do you do that? You soften, you decrease the plantar flexion resistance so that you get foot flat sooner. But you want to control tibial advancement. You don't want to feel like you're falling down the hill. So what ends up happening is the dorsiflexion increases. The dorsiflexion increases to give you a little bit of a knee extension moment to control that tibial advancement. On the contralateral side, that control of tibial advancement is occurring by eccentric control of your plantar flexors, of your gastrocnemius. Here in the Elan, which is a part of the Linx technology at the foot, you're getting that controlled tibial advancement through increased dorsiflexion resistance. Now let's take a step and look at going up a hill. When we go up a hill, we want the exact opposite. We want to soften the dorsiflexion resistance because we don't want an unwanted knee extension moment. So the Lynx system automatically recognizes through that tilt sensor, through that range of motion sensor, that we're walking up a hill. And it softens the dorsiflexion resistance, but it stiffens the plantar flexion resistance. By stiffening the plantar flexion resistance, it helps propel us and give us greater tibial advancement up the hill, which is what we need when we're walking at a faster pace. When we're walking at a faster pace, we want to get over our toe more quickly, more easily. And hopefully you don't hear the dogs barking in the background. But if you do, they're wonderful little dogs if they're up for sale, if you want them. But as we walk faster, what do we want? We want to get over our toe more easily so the dorsiflexion resistance softens and our plantar flexion resistance increases to help generate greater propulsion. It's going to engage that spring more and return that heel spring force more forward. And then finally, within the ankle itself of the Lynx, there's an accelerometer. It's going to impact that fast walk, but it's also going to impact I'm no longer moving forward or backward or sideward. It's going to say, hey, we're standing still. And when we're standing still, we want to ramp up that resistance of both the plantar flexion and dorsiflexion. We want to bow up that resistance to provide that individual with increased stability. What's really great with the Lynx system, just like with the Elan, it doesn't matter if that foot is in full plantar flexion, full dorsiflexion, or somewhere in between. It recognizes that the individual is no longer moving and ramps up that resistance to give them that stability. Now, what's wonderful about the Lynx system, it coordinates this standing support, this increased stability at both the ankle and the knee simultaneously. So here you're seeing this individual, their knee is an extension, their foot is, if they come back through in another second, there we go. Their foot looks like started in a little bit of dorsiflexion, but their knee is an extension and they have that increased stability with the foot flat on the ground. Well, what about if the knee is bent? Well, if the knee is bent and the foot is flat on the ground, in this situation, the knee is in flexion, the ankle is in dorsiflexion, and it has that standing support, that communication between the knee and the ankle to provide that individual with the stability they need in that position. But let's be honest, Other than Ralph Macchio, how many people are actually doing this stance? Not often, but what they are doing is this every day. They're standing on a slope facing upwards. They're standing on a slope facing sidewards. They're standing on a slope facing downwards. And what is happening? The ankle is self aligning to the needs of the patient. Regardless of what the knee is doing, the ankle is going to plantar flex or dorsiflex or be in neutral. It's going to align to the surface, while the knee is going to provide the stability that they need separate and in coordination with the foot. Here again, ankle is in plantar flexion, knee is in neutral. Here, he's taking a stop, his knee is in flexion, his ankle is in some slight dorsiflexion, and it provides that standing support. So it is independent of each other, but coordinated. It's not as if the knee is in flexion, that the ankle goes in dorsiflexion, or if the knee is in extension, the ankle goes in plantar flexion. They are able to provide a coordinated support and isolate those movements separate from each other. They are not having to influence one or another based on the position of the knee or the ankle. They're providing that coordinated support regardless of what the knee or foot needs to do. Now, another component of the Linx is what we call ramp assist. As you can see, this individual walking up a ramp. Well, what is going on? Well, one, the ankle is stiffening at the heel, softening at the toe so they can get over that foot more easily. The other thing is, because they're walking up a slope, that surface is coming at them faster than it is if they were walking on level surface. So as a result, individuals who are above knee amputees often vault when they're walking up a hill because their knee extension assist is at the same amount, whether they're walking on a flat surface or up a hill. Because of the coordinated efforts of the ankle and the knee working together, the ankle is letting the knee know, hey, guess what? We're walking up a hill. And because we're walking up a hill, what I need you to do with your knee extension assist, I need you to back off a little bit. By backing off, it gives that individual more time to clear their limb during swing so they don't stub their toe. They're less likely to vault and they're going to have greater control, greater stability, and greater confidence walking up a hill. And as a result, they're going to expend less energy and they're also going to have more equal limb loading. Well, let's talk about going down a hill. It's going to have a similar impact in the sense of the coordination of the ankle and the knee together are going to provide that individual with greater stability, greater support, and greater comfort. What's going on? So there's a lot going on with this slide. We'll take it one step at a time. Let's go up to the knee. When that individual is walking down a slope, there's that little hold right there. See that little hold in the flexion resistance? Well, when is that occurring? That is occurring right at toe off. Why? Because as they're walking down a hill, they're generating greater knee flexion position, and it's wanting to give that individual, wanting to generate more force to drive that knee into greater flexion to create greater heel rise. Well, by holding that extra little millisecond of knee flexion resistance right at toe off, you're controlling that excessive heel rise and providing that individual with greater control. Now, what happens when they get to level surface, as you see, it recognizes immediately they're on level surface and goes back to that normal release from stance into swing. The reason why this happens is because the ankle and the knee are talking to each other. The ankle is letting the knee know, hey, we're walking down a hill. I need you to control that release from stance into swing so we don't jackknife that knee. But hey, guess what? Now we're on level surface. Go back to normal walking, normal level walking resistance. That is the truly unique aspect of the Linx, is that bidirectional communication between the ankle and the knee to let the user have more control. And as you can see at the ankle, as we go down the hill, heel softens, toe stiffens. But then when we get to level surface, it goes to a medium level of resistance. that is dialed in by you as the practitioner for what they need for controlled gait during level walking. My dogs are still barking. Hope you don't hear them. If you do, they're really cute. You know, the white one is really sweet. The black one's sweet. They're little dogs, only weigh about 14 pounds. And I think they're right outside my door. Now, let's talk about descending stairs, a steep slope, and going into sitting. The Linx itself recognizes that there's not a toe load. And because there's not a toe load, it increases the knee flexion resistance that you need for going from standing to sit or for going down a steep slope. Again, it recognizes that immediately and puts the knee in a higher knee flexion resistance to control that descent down the stairs, to control that descent down a steep slope, and to control that descent when you're going from standing to sitting.
On this kind of terrain, on this kind of ramp, with the Linx, I've got full trust. It means I can keep my center of gravity nice and still without any pain.
So again, it recognizes that deep slope and ramps up the knee flexion resistance to provide the user with the stability that they need. Now let's talk a little bit. So we talked about the ankle. We talked about the ankle-knee interaction. Let's get a little bit deeper into what's going on specifically at the knee and how it works. So it is a combined hybrid hydraulic and pneumatic cylinder. What do I mean by that? So if you look at this cylinder here, you have in the top portion, as the piston is going into flexion, that's the hydraulic resistance. And the bottom portion is the pneumatic chamber. So again, as the piston moves into flexion, it goes first through hydraulic resistance that is controlling your stance flexion. But here, as you release from stance into swing, you're getting a controlled pneumatic extension assist to ensure that that foot is in the proper position for the next step, regardless of your cadence. But as you get that pneumatic extension push right there, it goes back through that hydraulic chamber. And that hydraulic chamber then creates drag to control heel rise along with terminal impact. It is truly unique that it is the only system that has microprocessor controlled hydraulic resistance and microprocessor controlled pneumatic extension assist combined together to provide the user with the stability and the control and the balance that they need regardless of what they're doing. A perfect example of this control is as someone walks at a faster pace. And we'll watch that now. He's walking slow. We're getting a nice consistent heel rise, nice consistent step length bilaterally. Now we're walking a little bit faster. And guess what? We have consistent heel rise between the left and the right leg. And now we're hoofing it. He's really pushing it to that higher speed. And we have consistent heel rise. We're smoothly getting over that foot. Why? As we increase speed, that heel stiffens and that toe softens. So we're not waiting on the foot. We're not waiting on the knee. We're truly able to go through those different cadences without a misstep, without any issue. So again, the pneumatic controls is heel rise, consistent with also the hydraulic resistance. And again, this pneumatic hydraulic dual chamber is what is making the difference for this individual as they go from a slow to a medium to a faster cadence. So let's talk a little bit about the knee itself. So there is an on-off button. The benefit of that on-off button is if you're on a car ride for 4 hours, or if you're like Mike and I and the other clinical specialists, we do a lot of traveling on planes. So if you have someone who's doing a lot of travel and sitting in a seat on a plane for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 hours, well, they can shut the power off. Yes, it does go into a sleep mode, but if you shut the power off, you're going to be able to conserve power more easily, which is a nice thing. There obviously is going to give you a battery indicator that the individual presses the minus button on the back of the knee, and it's going to let them know the battery level. It's a very simple charging port. There's a combination of magnets along with some prongs, and it charges very easily and connects very easily. You do have a little over a 3-day battery life, but you can extend that out even further if you conserve battery power by turning it off when you're going to be sitting for long periods of time. The nice thing is that if you do lose power in the system, if for some reason the patient hasn't charged it for 5 days and they've lost power, the knee goes to a high resistance mode for safety, but the ankle reverts to a hydraulic ankle like an echelon. So you still have controlled motion of plantar flexion and dorsiflexion resistance based on how you, as the practitioner, set it up during the programming. But the knee maintains stability and the foot maintains motion and mobility to get that true balance between stability and flexibility that they need when they've lost power in the foot and the knee. And the nice thing also is that with the Linx system, there's only one battery to charge. It's not as if you have a battery in the knee and a battery in the ankle, but rather you just have one battery that's up at the knee, more proximal, to improve the stability and support for the patient during swing. We do have 3 user modes. You have a fixed flexion lock mode, and you also have a cycling mode and a training mode. The training mode is one that you can work with your physical therapist on. You can show them how to enable the training mode. That will give them the ability to work with the patient specifically for some gait training and stairs training activities. And that is something when we come out and do a full certification, we can go through all the aspects of the training mode. One of the safety mechanisms, the safety design of the programming, is that these 3 user modes are disabled by default. You, as the clinician, would have to go into the app to enable them. Gives you the opportunity to sit with them and explain to them, this is fixed flexion lock mode. You can have it locked at 0 degrees up to about 40 or 45 degrees of knee flexion for an activity that you want to do at the knee. In addition, here is cycling mode. This is how you enable it, but you want to enable it once you're sitting on the bicycle. If you enable it in stance, it is a relatively free motion knee that isn't going to provide them the stability that they want. So you have to sit down with the patient, show them what the different modes are, how they're enabled, how they get back into walk mode, and that again is by safety mechanism. The nice thing is that they do not need an app themselves. They can engage those modes on the knee itself. So who is the appropriate person for the Linx? Well, the Linx is good for amputees who desire a smooth walking everyday prosthesis. It's also good for people who encounter uneven terrain and frequently encounter ramps. So I'd like everyone to kind of take a step back and think about their morning. Whether when they walked into their clinic or they walked outside to get into their car. Or for me, I think about when I walked out this morning to take my dogs out to use the bathroom. I had to go down 2 steps off my front porch. I had to walk on level surface. Then I had to walk on grass. And it was a little bit of a ramp, a little bit of an uphill. And then that's Piper. She's the little mouthy. I had to walk up the hill to let her use the bathroom. And then we had to turn around and walk down. So in everyday activities, individuals who are amputees, just like you and I, are encountering slopes, different terrain. They're required to stand. They're required to walk. They're required to go up and down slopes, up and down stairs. So when you look at it, it's truly for your everyday K3 ambulator. I will say this, though. With the advent of the new K2 LCD, the Linx is and meets the needs of that LCD, and you can use it for individuals who are K2 ambulators. That's something that Mike, myself, or one of our clinical specialists can talk more deeply about. But please this can be considered for your K2 individuals. One of the nice things is that on our website, we have multiple publications, multiple resources that you can have that can help you in your documentation to support utilization for the Orion, for the Linx, for your patients. One of the ones that I like the best is actually our hydraulic ankle summary. So it takes about 22 or 23 different articles and research articles, and it summarizes the benefits that we have studied and the benefits of hydraulic ankles, and it puts it into a way that you can document for your patient what is going to be the benefit for them, whether it's going to be the fact that that self-aligning is going to provide improved weight bearing, equal weight bearing in different circumstances, such as standing on a slope. But it is really an excellent summary, and it's a very quick read. It's only about 4 or 5 pages, and I highly, highly recommend it. It is something that you can find on our website very easily. So let's look a little about coding. We have had additional codes added to our Orion. We've had 2 additional PDAC approved codes added to our Orion, and we are waiting on getting those additional codes added to the Linx system. One of the nice things is that 5973 and that 5856 codes, those are 2 codes that require pre-authorization with CMS. So if you're going to be looking at utilizing the Linx or the Orion or the Elan for someone who has Medicare as their primary, then this is definitely beneficial that you're going to know that up front. One of the other nice things about the foot, about the knee, is that you do have 4 different proximal adapters that you can use that gives you the ability to not only have AP slide, but also rotation. This is going to minimize your use of additional componentry, especially if you have an amputee that is a new ambulator that may have 10-degree hip flexion tightness, but then starts to go to therapy and it gets reduced to about 8 degrees or 5 degrees. Well, you're not going to need that additional build height or weight of an adapter, of an additional component, but rather you can use the ones that are supplied by the Linx itself. So again, the Linx technology, you've got this coordinated interaction between the knee and the foot to provide the patient what they need, the stability they need, the flexibility they need, the energy return that they need based on what they're doing in real time. One of the things I love to do, especially when someone's coming off of a different microprocessor knee and they're trying the Linx or they're trying the Orion, is I love having them walk up a slope, turn around and walk back down. And for them to see that the ankle and the knee respond in real time, there's not a 2-second delay. They don't have to pre-position the foot, but rather the ankle self-aligns and the knee registers that they're going up or down a slope. It is truly beautiful. And the look on patients' faces when they go, oh, I didn't even have to think about turning around and walking down the hill. It is truly something special and one of the best parts of my week when I have the opportunity to experience it. Now, I had mentioned earlier that there is bidirectional communication between the knee and the foot. Well, this happens through a linkage, a direct linkage, a wire going from the knee to the foot. So one of the nice things is that it is very easy for us to adjust pylon length. All right, we're a centimeter off, or we're half a centimeter off. All right, well, just disconnect the pylon from the system, take that half a centimeter off and put it back together. It takes nothing but 2-3 minutes. It's quick, it's easy, and it's really nice. You're not limited to different segments of length, but rather you're just typically making an adjustment to the pylon like you would do with any other pylon when you're wanting to make a height adjustment. Now, one of the keys, though, is that you do have a cord connecting the knee and the foot. It runs through that pylon. So if the pylon is attached to the ankle and you are trimming the pylon, you have the chance of cutting that cord. So we highly, highly recommend that you remove, obviously mark your rotation, loosen 2 set screws on the ankle so you know which ones that you've got to tighten back up, but remove that pylon from the foot itself so that you can ensure that you're not going to cut that cord. I've seen it happen, and you're kind of, not much you can do once you cut that cord. The other nice thing is that we do provide an alignment jig, and you can see that over to the right of this picture. That allows you to, if you're using a hacksaw, to get a nice clean edge, and then you can bring that right over to your router with that jig still on to get a nice flat edge. But again, key is for you to make sure you disconnect the pylon from the knee and ankle when you are going to be uh, lowering that pylon. So I'm going to hand it back over to Mike to go over a summary of the unique benefits and to kind of provide an overall overview and summary.
Thanks, Todd. We've had several questions come through. I've tried to answer them all. Hopefully, I got through most of them. If you have further questions, of course, you can always email me. But some of the summaries, as you mentioned, it is truly unique. It's the first of its kind. It's a truly connected knee and foot system. There's nothing else like it in the industry. Nothing else like it that is a truly independent planner or independent foot and knee that work together, that coordinate that motion together. It's truly a remarkable device. It does provide that brake effect going down the slopes, which makes it easier. It makes the patient be able to descend the slopes. And Todd hit the nail on the head there, where he talks about, even, I live in South Texas. There's no hills anywhere, so you would think. But there's hills. My driveway's a hill. There are hills everywhere that you don't think about. I remember back when I was in college, we had to ride around in a wheelchair for a day, and that was in Lubbock, Texas, where there is even less hills than there is in South Texas. It's basically flat plains, and you learn pretty quick that there are hills everywhere when you're trying to power a wheelchair around with your arms. So there are slopes everywhere, and being able to have a foot and a knee that responds to the actual step that you're on makes a huge difference. And Todd talked about the weight of the device, and there's been another study. If you haven't seen a study that Hanger did about the weight of microprocessor feet, and it was actually just comparing microprocessor feet with non-microprocessor feet. And it's a big study that they did. It was a fantastic study. I encourage you to go and read it. But one of the questions they asked was, did it make the prosthesis feel heavier? And this was a study where they didn't change the socket, they didn't change the suspension, they didn't change anything but the foot, going from a mechanical foot to a microprocessor foot. And when they asked that question, the answer was no. They didn't notice a difference between the weight of the that wasn't a concern for them. So if you're one of those types of clinicians that doesn't like to use microprocessor feet, or especially paired with a microprocessor knee, I encourage you to reconsider it. That may be something that we used to think, and maybe it's not as accurate as we once thought. Maybe the benefit is enough to I don't know how to say it without the pun, but to outweigh the weight of the prosthesis. So if you haven't done it, I'd encourage you to give it a try. And stop and support. You mentioned it, Todd. The ability for the prosthesis to be able to go into full standing support, both at the ankle and at the knee. At the ankle, that's what makes it so easy. You don't have to worry about it moving back and forth when you stop moving. It's going to go into a nice rigid support for the user. But then also, while they're standing still, it's going to go into standing support, and even in full extension or flexion. And you may ask, do you need it in full extension? On flat ground, you may not, because you're geometrically stable. But when you stand downhill on a slope, absolutely. That support in the knee, locking it out effectively while you're standing downhill, makes a big difference. So being able to have standing support in full extension as well as flexion is a really big deal to us. And the fact that it does respond in real time. You can walk down a ditch and up the other side, and it's going to respond to that exact step, exactly where you need it, doing what you need to do so that you can traverse that slope much easier and more safer for the patient. So I hope you found this helpful. Again, my name is Mike McGee. You've got my QR code there. I saw somebody actually use the Blink card, so thank you, John, for that. But scan our contact information. Feel free to get it over to us, and that's the quiz. I'll give you about a week to complete the quiz. Actually, probably a little bit more because let's be real here. I'm not going to do this on Thanksgiving. I'll be doing it the Monday following, so it'll be a little bit over a week to complete this. But I'll submit them to ABC on December 1st, that Monday. I believe that's December 1st, whatever that Monday is. I'll be submitting it to ABC. If you need BOC or a state license or something like that, then you can submit it. You can just send me an email and we'll send you a certificate that you can self-report. But that's a QR code. We do have a few other questions. And Todd, I know you're worried about the barking dog. I couldn't hear it. I think the computer has a pretty good noise isolation thing. So we had a couple of questions. Georgia was asking if they can order the clamp tool. You can order a separate clamp tool if you need it. There is, and that's the cutting jig is what you're referring to there. That cutting jig is it comes with every single Linx you order. So if you order another Linx, you don't have to worry about if you have the jig or not. It will be there in the box when you get it. Somebody was asking about whoever's asking this question about the study. Feel free to email me specifically, and I will try to get it to you. I guess you have to purchase that to be able to download it. They were asking about a study, so I sent them the link to a study that was done on the Linx, but evidently you've got to pay for that. I just found it on our website and sent them over the link, but I can certainly get you some information on that. Just email me directly. Again, you can email me. My email address is up on the screen there, mike.mcgee@blatchfordus.com. You can certainly email me there or text me through the QR code, either way. And there is that study that we're referring to. There it is in the it was. I'll send it out in the email. How's that? There's somebody else asking. I assume it's somebody else asking about the study. So I will send that along with the quiz when I do the follow-up email. I'll send a link to that. It's at least got the abstract. You can at least read the abstract and the findings of the study. You can take the quiz. You can, if you don't want to do it on your phone, that's perfectly fine. I will be sending out the quiz link in an email, a follow-up email later on today, and it'll come across as a link. You can follow that link on your computer to do it there. That's no problem at all. Happy to do that. I will stay online for a few more minutes here and answer any additional questions. I just encourage you, if you haven't tried the Linx, just give it a try. It's the same L codes that you're probably using for a microprocessor knee anyway, with the addition of the 5973 microprocessor foot codes. So it's not, doesn't have any special 99 codes or anything like that. So if you're unsure, give it a go. We can do a demo. We can do a trial. That's no problem. One of our clinical specialists come in and teach a specific course because this is let's face it, it's a high level course, just giving you the background of the product. We would love to come in and teach a more detailed, specific course to you and fit it on one of your patients. We would love to do that and be happy to do that. So yeah, feel free to reach out. Is the foot waterproof? I think I read that. Did you respond to that? Let me get the foot. It is weatherproof. I don't know what happened there, but it is weatherproof. You can walk around in the snow. I've done trials in Alaska in the snow with it, and there's absolutely no problem with it. You don't want to submerge it, but it's perfectly fine in the rain and weather type stuff. Training mode is basically, Todd, I can answer that. Training mode is what it does is it temporarily disables the standing support mode and puts the pneumatic extension assist in one single speed. And what that does is allow the physical therapist to be able to have the patient standing in a nice environment of the parallel bars and stand there and not have to worry about standing support engaging when they're just trying to work on standing balance, perhaps. So it just temporarily disables that while they're in a safe environment. And the single speed allows them to make sure the knee's where it needs to go at the right time. What's the shortest person to fit? The minimum clearance is 18 and 5/8, 475 millimeters, for my metric friends. But it's it's 18 and 5/8 of an inch is knee as a socket to floor. So most transfemorals are working just fine. We've got one of our patient models is 5'1". She wears it at its lowest setting and loves it. So it kind of depends on how long your leg is versus the overall height of the person. So it's kind of hard to say a general height. It's all going to change a little bit based off of that. I can see lots of people are answering the quiz. I get emails when people complete the quiz, and so I'm getting lots of emails. So as far as links compared to other microprocessor needs, that was a question. I don't know if that person is still on or not. If they are, you've got to remember the Linx knee operates, aside from the portion that's communicating with the foot, operates very similar to an Orion. And there are loads of studies about the Orion compared to other microprocessor knees. In fact, there's the Oasis paper that Hanger did. And like I said earlier, a plug Hanger because they're doing so much fantastic research right now. But the Oasis One study looked at injurious falls compared to non-microprocessor knees, and they found that the Orion was one of the only knees out there, but one of two knees that provides prevents injurious falls as compared to a non-microprocessor knee. So if you're using one of the other knees, it didn't matter. You might as well have been using a mechanical knee for those. But for the Orion 3 and the other knee, those were the only two that prevented injurious falls. So we know the technology is the same, stable recovery is the same, all of that type of stuff is the same in the links. So you can take that. Somebody's asking about if United Healthcare will pay for the links. It's L5973 is the code that's in question, and that's the microprocessor foot code. You're going to have to unfortunately run that by the actual individual plan. We do have somebody, if you want to reach out, that we can help with. His name is Kevin Sims. He does a lot of help for us getting products approved. So if you're unsure with a particular insurance, we can help you with that. Just let me know, and we can help guide you in that process. It's no cost to you to utilize him. That cost is incurred by us to help support you. So feel free to send me an email, and I'm happy to help connect you to be able to help facilitate that.
And Mike, I'll second that. When I was in clinical practice, we would definitely lean on Kevin when we wanted to get the additional set of eyes to help us get things covered. And he was just absolutely incredible and great to work with, and a great resource for us at Blatchford, and a great resource for you as clinicians.
Yeah, Tony, he really is an asset. So we'll send me an email, and I'm happy to reach out to him and connect you both. All right, I think the questions are. Oh, hold on. How do we take the quiz? The quiz is a QR code on the screen. If you don't want to use a QR code, I will be sending it via email in a link, in a follow-up email. That should be coming out later on today. And I give everybody, in this case, I'll give you until the 1st of December to complete the quiz. Normally it's a week, but I'm not going to do it on Thanksgiving. What type of control mechanism occurs at the knee while going uphill? It's a combination of things. The foot, again, it's multiple things working together. So you have the foot that's walking up the ramp and says, hey, wait a minute, I think I'm going up a ramp. And it's going to change resistances. It's going to increase the plantar flexion resistance so you get more energy return out of the foot and help push you up the ramp, and then turn down the dorsiflexion so it's easy to climb up the ramp. But then at the same exact time, it's going to send that information to the knee. And that knee is going to say, wait, my foot just told me I'm going up a ramp. I need to change my speed so that it's easier to clear my toe. So it's going to change the extension assist, which is the beauty of this. It's one of the only, in fact, it is the only microprocessor controlled except perhaps the power knee. It's the only microprocessor controlled uh, extension assist in a microprocessor knee that's not power driven. So we can, because the foot's going to say, hey, we're going up a ramp, it's going to send that information to the knee, and the knee is going to change the extension assist so that it's not driven quite as hard so that you have more time to clear the toe. That's the beauty of the device. I hope that helped, Matthew. If not, feel free to reach out. Does the standing support block completely? I love these questions. Does the, where did it go? Did you answer it? Did you delete it, Todd?
So I did answer it, but you can answer it loud. It was asking if standing support completely blocks knee flexion.
Block it, for all intents and purposes, yes. And it is adjustable. Everything about the Linx is adjustable. So it comes default pretty much at effectively locking it out. It just ramps up the hydraulic resistance so much that it can't bend. But if you don't want it to lock it out all the way, you can decrease that amount. So maybe it just provides a little bit extra support, but doesn't fully lock it out. It's all up to you, the clinician. We give the power back to you to be able to have that adjustability on the device. You're the clinician in the room, not Blatchford. So you get to decide what's best for that patient.
And also the ankle still allows you to have your normal postural sway that you need for comfort. And then someone's asking about, does the foot dorsiflex when the knee goes into flexion?
Yeah,
The
Kevin,
knee,
great to see you on here. But
go right on. No, you're good.
if it depends. It depends what's going on. It doesn't require that, no. But if you're sitting into a chair, then it would. If you are, does it dorsiflex when it goes into flexion? If you're, for some reason, standing on a hill, or if you put your foot out in front of you when you're sitting, or do you have any other examples, Todd, of how that could be useful? But they're completely independent. So it could, or it could not. It depends on the situation for the actual instance that you're trying to do it. If you're wanting it to dorsiflex because you're standing on something, it will dorsiflex. If you want it to go to plantar flexion while your knees flex, say you're standing on a downhill lie in a golf swing, well, it's going to plantar flex like you want it to plantar flex, and you can flex your knees to be able to get yourself in a good body position to make your golf swing. It's going to do that for you. So it's not dependent on each other, if that answers your question, Kevin. If not, you've got my contact info. You can reach out. It's like I said, good to see you on here.
Another good example, real quick, was I worked with a bilateral Linx patient, and he liked to shoot pool. And one of the things they really loved about it was that with the Linx, his front leg could be in a flex position and dorsiflexed, and it would hold him steady, while his back leg, his right leg, to adopt the proper posture, could be in full knee extension and dorsiflexion. So one knee was in flexion and dorsiflexion, one knee was in extension and dorsiflexion. And he just, it was amazing just the look on his face when he realized he could do it. And it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's a great example. Okay, well, I hope we got all the questions answered. If not, feel free again to email me or Todd. We'd be happy to help. But we hope to see you in your own clinic doing a CEU course. And if not, then we'll see you next time on our next webinar. We do these every month, generally the third Thursday of the month. December is going to be a tricky one. I'm not sure what day we're going to do it on yet. That's our decision for next week. But keep an eye out on your emails. We'll be getting it out to you, and look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you, Todd. Great job. Any last comments, Todd?
No, sir.
Thank you, everybody.